Sinan Ülgen is a Turkey-EU relations expert and chairman of the Turkish think tank EDAM, which is the Centre for Economics and Foreign Policy Studies, and he's joining us now from the Turkish capital, Ankara. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Sinan. Let's start with this idea that some politicians are saying, we just can't take any more. Do you buy that?
Well, this is a position, in a way, forced upon Turkey by the unwillingness of the EU to really help Turkey, especially on the side of resettlement, because what Turkey has done stands in stark comparison with what the EU has done so far. We're talking about 2.5 million refugees on the Turkish side, and possibly quite a few more to come. So it's essentially a position to alert the EU that the EU needs to do more.
Right, so this comes down to, I mean, I hate to say it, but this is a bargaining position really then, isn't it? Perhaps recognised from both sides who's going to concede a bit of ground first.
Yes, sure, because so far, when you look at the numbers, Turkey did have an open door policy. It did lead to this huge increase in the number of Syrian refugees. With no end in sight to the civil strife in Syria. So in a way, Turkey wants to limit its exposure, but it certainly wants the EU to do more on this and to really agree to accept higher numbers of Syrian refugees. That is, in essence, the burden sharing that Turkey needs, which was a principle that was agreed on in the November deal with the EU.
Right,
the deal was not just about money, it was essentially about burden sharing.
Right, so and is it still, do you think, essentially just about burden sharing, or are there bigger picture issues? Obviously, Turkey's desire for accession to the EU, a readiness for the EU to open up negotiations again. Are there also bargaining chips being played with there, do you think?
They are, because when we look at the agreement in November, it actually goes beyond the refugee issue exclusively. Turkey used its position of power. There's a perception in Ankara that Turkey acquired a degree of leverage over the EU because of the refugee crisis and because of the need that the EU has for Turkey to be able to manage that crisis without fully undermining its own internal cohesion and solidarity. And Ankara is using this leverage to force the EU in order to improve the overall framework of its relationship. That's why we have seen in the package a commitment by the EU to lift visas for Turkish citizens by October 2016. This is a conditional commitment, conditional also on Turkey fulfilling a number of technical criteria. There's also a commitment by the EU to accelerate the accession talks and to hold regular Turkey-EU summits. So in a way, this is a package that is designed not only to help Turkey on the refugee side, but also improve the overall context of the Turkey-EU relationship.
So clearly, on the bigger picture, plenty to play for. But I do wonder, when Turkey has brought in 2.5 million, we're talking about a few tens of thousands, at a time at which the UN is putting out a report saying there's virtual extermination going on across that border in parts of Syria. They will let them in, won't they? I mean, they've got too much at stake, and they've perhaps garnered a lot of goodwill in doing what they're doing to fall short here.
I think so. I think that the main principle, which has been a humanitarian principle of keeping the border open, will be maintained. But this is a way to put more pressure on the EU. But also, Turkey learned from its past mistakes. In the past, these poor people, these distressed people, were let in without any control. Now what Turkey is trying to do is at least impose a degree of control over the border, fingerprinting them, registering them before they are let in. And that's the reason why things may have slowed down.
That, of course, as you said, it slows it down. And I mean, sad to say, at a critically dangerous point for those fleeing Aleppo.
Yes, but if there is indeed, if we reach such a peak moment in terms of an imminent danger to their lives, I think Turkey will open the border.
Okay, well, that's Sinan Ülgen. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on that, giving a perspective which might give some hope for those people trapped on the border, an issue, of course, which has run for so many years now.